Welcome to the broadcast, my fruits. Alessandra, Marc, I received your comment and I shall address it later on in the broadcast. I'm just mentioning that now in case you switch off before it finishes. I have also cobbled together, which I will play in a few moments, footage of Thomas Markle Sr. and Jr. and Samantha discussing the subject of Meghan's age and clearing that up. I know we're all sick of it, but I wanted to put that together in one place. I don't believe it's been done before as a reference guide for any doubters there may be, because there are still so many doubters. Also, I don't know if you've heard the news, but Monday is going to be a rather exciting day at Balmoral, if reports are to be believed. We had the Sandy Summit at Old Sandringham, a moment of great importance. And now we are going to have what I am terming and I am christening the Balmoral Brief. The Balmoral Brief. We'll talk about that in a little while as well, but exciting. Addressing a question on that subject of Meghan's age. Lousy Poirot berated me for my findings that Meghan is the age that she says she is, and Lousy Poirot says, incorrect, River. Tom Bower did mention in Revenge that Samantha was 13 years old at the time she was born. Meghan herself, in her emails with Knauf and Scobie regarding Finding Freedom, said she was born in 1979, and on a number of occasions on social media and in court, Samantha has mentioned she was 13 to 14 years old, blah, blah, blah. The truth you are discussing is something of a cover-up. It is not fact. Your video seems like a smear campaign with no real compelling evidence presented. Well, I don't know what you consider compelling evidence, my dear. I offered the fact that most of her classmates can be Googled and found to be exactly the same age as she is, but I will now run what I consider to be fairly compelling evidence of her family members discussing and verifying her date of birth. For posterity, for us all. Roll the tape.
I'm pretty surprised how many people don't believe Meghan's birthday.
Meghan is absolutely 40 years old.
Okay.
8/4/81.
Okay.
Her birthday. And,
okay. So we'll put that rumor to rest.
Okay, yes.
So
now, can I say one thing? Can we put one thing to rest, Samantha? The age of your sister. How old is she, please? I'm not seeing these questions.
she's 41 now.
Okay, so she's 41, she's now 45. We don't want to just fuel these things that are not true. Okay.
That's another
Go ahead,
thing too.
Paula.
I mean, people have seen her birth certificate. I was very clear in my book. She was born in 1981.
Yeah, she was.
Going on 17.
Yeah.
If she was 45, that would imply, because I put in my book that when Gloria came into our lives, it was in Santa Monica. I was living with my dad. She moved in with us first. They married in 1979. So if Meghan was 45, Meghan would have to be born before they even met and married.
Yeah, exactly.
Answer to a few questions out there. Meghan's age, all right, I'm only going to say it one more time. Her birthday is 8/4/81. August 4th, 1981. That is her birthday. Yes, she's 41 years old and 3 days closer to 50 now.
Of course, by now I am quite aware that even in the face of that evidence, which I find rather compelling, there will be an ocean. It's hard to believe, but there will be an ocean of people who will still think that, oh, the Markles are covering up something's gone awry. It's not quite true. But there are 3 family members, none of whom have a reason to hide any facts at all, especially Samantha. Consider Samantha, who has actually been in and out of claims. I think one is still ongoing, isn't it, in relation to those very emails and notes that were sent. So if she wanted to prove that Meghan was being crafty with dates and this kind of thing, I think now is the time she would have spoken out about it. Thomas Jr., of course, that was one of the rare moments that he's not clowning around. Some of you don't seem to understand that a lot of his channel is clowning around and making a bit of a parody of occasions, but in that moment he was speaking the truth, as was Thomas Markle Sr. So as for your accusations, where exactly is this cover-up that I am supposed to be herald of? Where exactly is who is under my smear campaign? Who am I trying to smear? Obviously not Meghan, but obviously not the three Markles, because they agree with me. And who's left? Conspiracy theorists. Apparently I'm waging a campaign against conspiracy theorists. Well, if I'm smearing the campaign of those who lie, who believe in fabrications, and who twist and warp any narrative to go along with their own, well, I hold my hands up there. Yeah, you got me. You got me. Ooh la la. L'art de memoire is alive and well, and you can go down calling yourself Hercule Poirot with your investigations, my dear, but they don't hold any water as far as the river is concerned. And Lisanne Funk, I think that was your name, dear, was one of many fruities. And you can pause to read the information she gave here if you wish to read her comment to me. She was one of the many who explained how the birth certificate is easily found online if it needs to be read. And one of the misunderstandings about her age, I think, emerged from one of those emails that she sent on 10th of December 2018 from Meghan to Jason Knauf. And in it, she said in one of her bullet points, she said, Doria left Tom when Meghan was 2 years old, moved to the other side of town, 45 minutes away. And then she went on to say his other children were 15 and 17 years old. And I think this is where a lot of confusion came in. But it only takes a bit of common sense to realise that it should have been a separate bullet point that she made there. It should have been two separate facts. But she went on to sort of conflate the two. It is not immaculately written. What Meghan was trying to say after she explained that she was 2 years old when Doria left is that his other children were 15 and 17 years old when Meghan was born. So she didn't explain that immaculately, but we have to remember she didn't know that this was going to be gone over with a fine-toothed comb in a High Court submission or whatever it was years later. It was a bit careless, but I don't believe that she was lying about that intentionally. I'm not quite sure why she would lie about such a thing. It wouldn't do her any favours, and all four of the Markles, excluding Doria, but one would presume that she would back it up as well, go along with the fact that Meghan was born on the 4th of August 1981. And I did calculations, and that would make Samantha, if her birthday is the 24th of November 1964, 16 years old, 8 months and 11 days when Meghan was born. And it would make Tom Jr., who I believe was born on the 17th of September 1966, 14 years old, 10 months and 18 days. But it would have made Samantha 16 going on 17, as she said, and Thomas 14 going on 15. So they were on the cusp of turning 17 and 15, which is the ages that Meghan has given to suggest that they were those ages when she was born. That's how I feel that a mistake has been willfully misinterpreted by Poindexters out there. And for those of you who are patient, reasonable fruities who watch this broadcast and don't need any further convincing, I do apologise to you for bringing it up again and again. To the more impatient ones of you who don't understand why I do it, and some of you will often say either politely or rather discourteously, you don't need any further evidence. It doesn't matter what her age is. Well, the reason it matters to me, and I don't care whether she's 18 or 84, my dear. No, the age doesn't matter to me at all either. What does matter to me is the fact that many of these wild conspiracy theories that are hugely propagated and seen by hundreds of thousands and believed in their masses do have a reverberating, embarrassing effect on the rest of us who are reasonable and rational. And that's not to say that every supposition that I make and that every angle I come from is the true, correct angle. Not at all, my dear. I get things wrong every day, I'm sure, including something that I'll bring up in a moment about poor Princess Anne. But, I get things wrong all the time, my dear, but at least I do my best to try and root my tree in the clod of substance, my dear, and not wild fantasy. And that is what I find rather embarrassing about other quarters. But yes, I must mention I made a boob in the last broadcast, I think it was. I intimated that Princess Anne was shagging her brother. They're the words I used. Well, just to clarify, as I did go on to clarify in that piece, but I got some comments about it. Princess Anne, A, was not shagging Prince Charles back in the 70s, so I must make that very clear for legal reasons. And also, B, Princess Anne was not shagging Camilla's brother. It was, as I went on to say, and most people understood, Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's husband-to-be. And, I'm sorry that I slipped up there. I think I was conflating in my mind two legendary Lotharios, Andrew Parker Bowles, who actually the character of Rupert, was it Campbell Black, from Jilly Cooper's Riders was based on. Not precisely, you understand, but he was the inspiration for that character. But Camilla's brother, of course, was also much adored as a very charismatic, handsome wooer of women, and he was very much enjoyed by them. So perhaps just for a split second I was mixing up the two of them. Stephanie Barrett, thank you for your comment in response to the last broadcast. River, you're right. Those people making horrible comments about Camilla are just vile, but it wasn't suggested that Camilla would be Princess Consort. It was a promise, reassurance to all the subjects in the kingdom and all the realms that Camilla would never be fashioned as queen out of respect to the memory of Diana. It was done and agreed on as a way to get some amount of public approval for the marriage of Charles and Camilla, or at least not to get too much flack about it. Without that, there would have been a lot of public discontent and even outcry against the marriage. So it appears many people were lied to about this because the promise was not kept as it turned out. Charles always intended to make Camilla his queen, and they clearly went on a subtle 2-decade PR strategy to achieve it. The broken promise is no excuse for those people to make such horrid comments, though. It's sad that so few people seem to have any semblance of good manners, courtesy, or respectful conversation about disagreements nowadays. Well, thank you most sincerely for your comment and for correcting me when I said that it had been suggested that Camilla would be known as Princess Consort in due course. You are right to correct me, and if I was glib that it was a mere suggestion that she would be Princess Consort, then slapped wrist forever. Only a few years ago in 2020, Clarence House did say the intention is for the Duchess to be known as Princess Consort when the Prince accedes to the throne. This was announced at the time of the marriage, and there has been absolutely no change at all. So it was not a suggestion, it was their intention. It was their intention. Although I would also say, my dear, that it was not a promise, it was an intention. If we're going to be precise here, it was not a promise or a pledge, but I certainly understand what you're saying. It was an intention. It was an established intention that had been confirmed at least twice. That intention was revoked by the late Queen Elizabeth II. It was her intervention on the eve of her 70th anniversary of her reign. It was signed off as her sincere wish, your servant Elizabeth. So we have to remember that. If anybody is angry about it, and having considered what you've said, I can understand exactly why they would be angry about it. The anger must be directed at the late Queen Elizabeth, I'm afraid, my dear. She was frail of body. By this time, it was a few months before she died, she was frail of body. She was a weak and feeble woman, but with the heart and stomach of a queen. And a Queen of England, too. Yes, my dear, I'm sorry. You can speak to anybody that was around her, even until her very last couple of days. She was completely compos mentis, totally with it, nobody's fool. And yes, she was a servant of the people, but she was not a servant of Charles and Camilla, and she would not have had the old head turned to do their bidding unless she wasn't totally and utterly behind it. I also must take issue with what you say about the fact that this was done out of respect to the memory of Diana. Yes, I totally accept that that was the common thought, and perhaps it is true, but as well as it never being stated as a promise, this was never stated as a reason that it would be out of respect to the memory of Diana. To my knowledge, forgive me if I'm wrong. Well, on the one hand, I must confess I marvel at the dexterity of this plan, the masterstroke of the Queen's intervention at the last moment of her blessing, and of the transition, which has been with little turbulence, with little to no turbulence, which is astonishing when you think how reviled and how loathed and how hated Camilla was. And still is in some quarters. I'm not blind to that. That's the business of others. It was an illustration of the long game. This is what gives me a bit of heart, you see, for those that say the royal family ain't tough. This was the long game illustrated and hung out like a tapestry to show off exactly what it's all about, my dear. The toughness, the ruthlessness, the intelligence of monarchy. I'm sorry, but they played a blinder. In that respect, I must bow down and marvel, my dear. PR strategy or no, I must bow down and marvel at it, just as many are bowing and curtsying to Queen Camilla this very day, whether you like it or not. But I do agree, my dear, when you say that there is good cause for anger. There is. You know, if I was not a fan of Camilla, then I would have my nose severely put out of joint. I think it was stupid of Clarence House to let any such intention be known in the first place. It's the first rule, isn't it? Never explain. Never explain. And that is the one time with this whole debacle that they did that comes to mind. They explained. And there was no reason to. They should have kept stum, because they have reneged on an intention, if not a promise, on a stated intention. Twice. This was even just 3 years ago, until Queen Elizabeth intervened. We can only guess why, but perhaps it's possible that that all came down to, amongst other things, tying up loose ends, Queen Elizabeth's own journey accepting Camilla and having that change of heart in her final years, and wanting to make that gift of a blessing not just for Camilla but for her son. But I do agree with those who think that it was disingenuous, and I do sympathise with those who are angry that they were told one thing as an intention and then it was swivelled. It was the old switcheroo, wasn't it, my dear? The old switcheroo at the last minute. They did play a blinder. And so we turn to this coming Monday and the Balmoral brief impending, if press reports are to be believed. A summit on Monday to lay out the future of the monarchy, hosted by the King, where he will mark out his intention to carve out precise roles for their Majesties and the Prince and Princess of Wales. And their star quality, in particular Princess Catherine's, is going to be harnessed and will be central to the King's plans to help bind the Commonwealth. A source has said that His Majesty is very clear. The Commonwealth must be at the very heart of his reign. He sees it as his utmost duty to fulfil the sincere wish of his late mother that one of his central roles must be to ensure not only the survival but the robustness of the organisation. And we all know how that robust organisation was damaged, don't we? Need I spell it out? There are two letters that spell out the word H and M. They wreaked their devastation over the reputation of the Queen's late legacy. They wreaked it with the attitude of, well, if we're going to take the Commonwealth with us. That's what they want. They want to be King, Queen, ambassadors of the Commonwealth out of Montecito, which is what we see with them in their ongoing "we want privacy" tour. The objectives covered in this Balmoral brief will be foreign travel, engagements, and the key aims. and one can only imagine how much easier and less of a headache these summits and briefs and meetings are without certain Duke and Duchess making their point so very clearly, wreaking their havoc, being the fly in the ointment, and not just doing as a minor Duke and Duchess should do. Getting on with things, towing the line, being a team player, not the leader, not the leaderess, not the alpha male and female. Meghan and Harry. No, that is not the place for you, my dear. You should have simmered it down, let Big Willie got on with his appointment as future heir and our king. They are the important ones. And everybody is important on a team, I understand that. But the reserves stay in the benches. Maybe that is why Meghan wrote a book called The Bench, because she knows deep down in her heart that that is a position that she and hubby should have retained. The bench, the substitute bench. Well, you weren't called up, you weren't needed, you're not going to be needed, so keep it stum. Luckily, they've silenced themselves and will not, after Harry's performance at the Sandy Summit, will not be appearing at the Balmoral brief. No, not welcome there, my lovers. Not welcome there at all. William is still admired despite their best efforts, isn't he? America adores him. America adores him. As we've seen in the polls, he's highly favoured. Best and highly favoured, dears. And Catherine, the thing about Catherine is she has all of Diana's glamour, but with none of the drama that went with it. Do you understand that? Do you understand? All of Diana's glamour without the merest trace of drama. Actually, she has the qualities and characteristics of purity that the late Queen Elizabeth had. And I don't say that lightly. I do not say that lightly, because it's the type of purity, and no human is 100% pure, my dear, don't get me wrong, even the late Queen Elizabeth. But as good as it gets in that respect, you know, Queen Elizabeth II is a hard act to follow, but astonishingly, Catherine's qualities of purity in thought and word and deed, and her natural noblesse oblige she possesses, are comparably faultless. They are comparably faultless. Astonishing. Their Majesties are going to be venturing to Kenya in the autumn, which is of course where the late Elizabeth became sovereign, up a tree. And it's understood that there are plans for Canada and Australia next year. These requests come from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, by the way. They're not initiated by their Majesties. Time is of the essence. The Caribbean tour was a wonderful success. They were very well received, very popular, but it was disastrous, hideous press. Why? Again, because of the Harkles. Because of the Harkles causing their mischief, damaging their own relations' reputation, making everybody feel badly towards them. Do you understand any ardent admirers of them out there? I mean, you're entitled to pick your team. It is what it is. I'm sure they have some good points, but in the eyes of many of us, those good points are sullied by their own selfish behaviour and the way they threw their own family under the bus. We all have family feuds, we all have dysfunctions, we all fall out from time to time, or get the hump, or, you know, this kind of thing. But to just completely and utterly throw these little grenades of terror back at them and into their atmosphere is so selfish. It's so little, so small, and it is not life-enhancing. The Duchess of Sussex was photographed again by friends, enjoying celebrations for her 42nd. She was out dining in Cali, out dining in California. How dare she? How dare she? Just being silly. Caddy Lee was one of the friends. Cleo Wade. Caddy is a celebrity colourist. Caddy Lee has worked with Julia Roberts, Brad Pitt and Sigourney Weaver. Well, now she's got another Duchess weaving her tales. And Cleo Wade is an Instagram poet. An Instagram poet, is that some new career? Some new vocation? An Instagram poet laureate! Cleo Wade. The engagement ring was removed, it's noticed. Well, she still has the wedding band in place and everything else. But it was just too showy, too flashy for her to turn up with the rock, wasn't it? Was it humility? Or was it the fact that she can't afford enough security to protect the ring? Well, something that might give the Duke of Sussex a bit of ring sting is the fact that the King has officially appointed Prince Harry's nemesis, Sir Edward Young, the rare honour of becoming his permanent Lord-in-Waiting. Yes, Lord Young is the courtier that Prince Harry despises and was slagging off something rotten in The Spare. He called him the Bee. Wasn't it the wasp, the bee, and the hornet, or something else? Well, he was the bee due to his oval-faced and fuzzy appearance and tendency to glide around with great equanimity and poise. Of course, this is J.R. Mooring painting his pictures with "Lot of memoire, ooh la la, ooh la la." Throw him a string of onions, my dear, and a pack of gitan. This was the machinations of J.R. Mooring. Character throwing another one under the bus, this time poor old Sir Edward Young, who was the late Queen's private secretary. Lord Young may now represent the King at events that the King is unable to attend. Yes, now that he is a permanent Lord-in-Waiting. How does that feel, Harry, to know that your nemesis will be doing things that you'll never be able to do on behalf of the King? Sources say that this new honour reflects the King's gratitude for all the work that he did for Queen Elizabeth II, often under great pressure. We know what pressure that was, don't we? And just in case that you are not understanding that not only is this a decoration for Sir Edward Young, but it is also a spit in the eye to the second son. There are two types of Lord-in-Waiting. There is the political kind that is appointed by government, and there is the non-political kind appointed by the monarch, and that is what you find in this circumstance. On rare occasions, senior courtiers are given the honour of permanent Lord-in-Waiting, and I mean exceptionally rare. The other one at this moment in time is David Cholmondeley. Yes, the Marquis of Cholmondeley. So, he's got tons of other honours as it is anyway, but this is another one piled upon him. And that should tell you what King Charles thinks of Harry's recollections and his memoir. Okay, so I will quickly wrap up by mentioning a basketeer by the name of Alessandra Marc, who I am pleased to have amongst. And I'm mentioning this, my dear, because Alessandra Marc is an opera singer of great note, a great acclaim, high acclaim. She is an absurdly talented woman, now living in Chantilly, Virginia. And Alessandra, my dear, I'm addressing this to you because you've commented on my channel for over a year. You always leave very long comments. They're full of praise for me, which I thank you for, and also full of praise for yourself, which I can completely understand because you are absolutely fantastic, absolutely magnificent, and I am humbled to have you among the Fruit Basketeers. But you always try to get my attention and say, please notice me, please, blah, blah, blah. I've replied to you several times, my dear, and this happens quite a bit. There's quite a few times when I've replied to people and they don't realise they're either not getting a notification or not checking back. Usually, I think I always receive a notification, a little sort of red blush at the top of the screen. Oh, part of my gloves. What on earth has happened to this part of my rather delicate glove? Look, it's got, I thought it was a hair hanging off, but it's, oh. Don't know what that is. Very strange. Yeah, I've replied to you on a number of occasions, my dear, but you're not picking up the replies. You haven't in the plus. I'm just letting you know I see you. I really, really see you. You are marvellous. You're fantastic. I mean, you seem... I'm just going to speak plainly, my dear. I'm sorry if it offends anyone else. Actually, I'm not sorry because, this is just me. I speak plainly. It does seem like you're a little bit nuts. I mean, I say this with affection, my dear, but it does seem that you are a little bit nuts these days. But a happy nut, and, you know, fruit and nut goes well together, doesn't it, my dears? And you're often fruity, very fruity. And I'm going to leave a clip of Alessandra in the description box. I'm going to leave a link to one of your warblings, because you advised me to listen to you. I mean, I've been listening to you for a year on and off because I've seen your comments and recognise your fabulosity, but you really do have a stunning voice, and it really should be heard by as many people as possible. So I want to celebrate you today as one of our basketeers. And if you haven't heard me mention it before, I'm extremely au fait with the opera world. I'm extremely au fait with Glyndebourne. Now, I don't know if you had any involvement. I'm presuming that you certainly did, perhaps back in the 80s or 90s, or whenever you were most active. I'm not sure, my dear. Obviously, we come from different generations, but I'm sure that we would have rubbed shoulders with a lot of the same people. The late Sir Peter Hall, the Christies, the late Pauline Tinsley, and I could actually reel off about 30 different names that I'm sure we would have friends in common. Unfortunately, it's not to protect me, it's to protect them and other people that I can't name drop. I am someone that loves both name dropping and receiving the drops. I think it's fabulous. I love to know, because I'm a bit of a gossip, my dear, and it's just juicy. I would love, in every broadcast, I would love to name drop people that come in and out of my life, people that I know. I'm talking about people of note. But unfortunately, in this day and age, with social media, to protect them, and so that you don't get the parasocial running off to have a natter with them, I just can't. I have to keep the lips sealed, which is really annoying, because it's not to protect me, it's to protect them and other people that don't wish to, be publicised in that way, or have the parasocial running after them. So I'm going to keep my lips sealed in that department. But I see you, and I think you're fabulous and fruity. Alessandra Marc, the diva. Actually, to be honest with you, my dears, I've got a feeling she'll probably skip this broadcast or just miss it. And then in a couple of weeks, I'll get another 5,000 word comment saying, "My name is Alessandra Marc, I am a great fan, and I would love you to see my work." I bet that's what's going to happen, because she's a real fruity one. Dearest River, it has been so comforting, and I remain incredibly grateful to you for sharing a part of your life's journey with us, your devoted basketeers. It's also been so lovely to observe your blossoming over these past many years that I have watched, listened, learned, often laughed out loud here alone in my bedroom, and been spared the many times I have felt so alone, so misunderstood, so damned lonely. We're sorry you feel alone, my dear. All of us do at one time or another. I'm afraid it is the human condition. We all feel that, so misery loves a bit of company, doesn't it? So do know that you're in good company, whether it's the late Queen Elizabeth or River or you. We all feel lonely, and it's one of our life's work, I feel, to try and find the godliness within us to be our companion through life. And that doesn't have to be in any sort of religious sense at all, but it is one of life's missions for all of us, my dear. Otherwise one feels the vacuum, doesn't it? The lack of presence of something. And there is no easy answer to it. It's everybody's life's work to find that thing that will make them feel that we all have something beside us or something within us to accompany us through life and witness our lives. And that can happen, as we all know, whether you're sitting alone on a mountain top or at some gay party with 500 people there. It could happen. So I understand you're feeling that loneliness, alone in your bedroom, and are going through problems. But just know, as a balm, that it happens anywhere with everyone, my dear, at some point or another. And then you say something with that river twinkle in your eyes, or say something with such sweet righteous indignation while speaking full-on truth about something, and I am reminded of how much you do to uplift, to educate, to heal our hearts just a little. I'm glad that you recognise it. I see you, darling. As long as you don't start going completely batshit crazy. I see you and adore your fabulousness, and you see what I'm about, you get it. You see the river twinkle, you see my righteous indignation, you see that I'm enjoying it when I'm righteously indignated, and that I'm doing it to try and warm the cockles of your heart, my dear, not just to be a bitch. Thankfully, most of you get it. Some goes over the head, my dear, but I've come to realise they're unsophisticated. What can you can't drag people up, can you, when they're completely unsophisticated? Some people are eager to learn. Others, you know, you can drag a horse to water, can't you, dear? What else do you say in this big diatribe, my dear, in your capital letters? I am Alessandra Marc, your most devoted, true, and very grateful, adoring, genuine, opera-singing, concertizing American diva, as I am known by my fans worldwide, living in Chantilly, Virginia, with my gorgeous husband, John. I have had the great honor and joy of singing Turandot, a role I've sung worldwide from Lincoln Center, NYC, to Paris, to London, Milan, and Tokyo, with the Royal Opera at Covent Garden, under the baton of the magnificent Sir Edward Downes, R.I.P., and many other places of wonderful repute. I sometimes think about if you've ever heard me or how you might enjoy hearing my singing. I've over 25 commercial recordings and ask, would you be interested? And if so, I might suggest listening to Opera Gala with Dallas Symphony. I've told you before, my dear, I'm afraid. I know that I'm not an expert at American accents. I amalgamate them and they all get twisted. And I've tried a southern one before and offended a few people because it became really like that. Well, you have to forgive me. I will try and do it a bit more elegant. Bless your heart, my darling. It's because I've been listening to too much of Britney Spears, my dear. But I do love southern women, and as some of you have told me, southern women enjoy a similar sort of sense of humor to a river, which can be a little camp and a little shady without knowing so. Bless your heart, my dear. Let me pour you some tea and some mint julep. Oh dear, where's my spectacles? I have no idea if Alessandra Marc sounds this way, by the way. I'm disparaging. I love, adore, respect, and thank you with hand on heart and the most utmost sincerity, humility, and grace. Thank you for both my tears as well as my laughter. You are a true treasure on the worldwide net. Alessandra Marc. I'm giggling, but I'm taking what you say seriously, my dear. I know you will understand that. A diva sees a diva. Do you know why should I worry about trash such as those that disparage me when I have divas of the opera world such as Alessandra Marc? Alessandra Marc, understanding exactly what River is all about. Royalty loves me. Friends of royalty loves me. The opera world loves me. They're all crawling over hot stones to get at me, my dear. Just this morning I had Princess Elizabeth of Yugoslavia's daughter offering to send me a tiara and offering it in either gold or platinum, which was very kind of you, Christina, my dear. It was very kind of you. But all I need is your fruity presence, and that is what brings me joy. And if I return any to you, then my job is done, my dear, for the day. So if you've left feeling a little uplifted, my tip jar is in the description box below, my privy purse. So get jingling jangling, my dear. And if not, well, thanks for turning up, and I'll see you next time, my dear. Take care, toodle pip, and stay royal.